Welcome back to Grit for Life podcast. I am Nate Parks. I am the founder of Grit for Life. And music is brought to you tonight and today, whatever time it is you're listening to, by FezlonStudios.com. Go check them out if you're looking to do anything that requires some background music, things like that. Great place to go, look, browse, listen, download if you need to. This podcast today, I want to take a look at something that I think is very near and dear to my heart and also I believe is very important. And that is the understanding that each of us have a path. You're like, yeah, duh, I already know that. Listen to me though. Each of us have a path or a trail that is set out before us. And it is our responsibility to travel that path, to travel that trail. But it is also our responsibility to remember to leave a trail behind. Some of the biggest questions I get from people who interact with Grit for Life or come to our events or work with me one-on-one is, how do I know all the things that I know? And how am I able to stay motivated throughout the things that happen in my life? And where in the world did I come up with the principles that I use and that we use in Grit for Life, in our events, in our one-on-ones, our Facebook? And speaking of Facebook, if you haven't checked us out, if you're listening to this on our iHeartRadio podcast, then check us out on Facebook. You can just look us up, Grit for Life. Join us. That's where the community is based on. That's actually where we got our start, and we've grown from there. But back to what I was saying is, these questions that people ask many times, let me say, they're very valid, and they're great questions. Because I think that we have, if you know anything about Grit for Life, if you've listened to any of our podcasts, if you know of anything of how I teach and the principles that I teach, I talk about reflecting. It is so important. In fact, it's part of our mission statement: motivating the mind, building the body, and searching the soul. That's that reflective piece. Now, with these questions, the first time I started having people present these to me, I just kind of stated, well, I'm not sure. They're just there. But the reality of it is that's not true. They aren't just there. In fact, the principles and the morals that guide each and every single one of us, none of them are just there. It's not like we were born and the next day we got this download upgrade that had all the principles and morals and guidelines that would take us through life. No, that's not the case. So when I began to take time out and reflect, like I encourage every single person to do, then I began to see something different. I began to see a different answer to those questions, and I began to change how I responded. By reflecting, we're given the opportunity to look deeper into what we have learned, where we need to learn some more. And then, as I was talking about, what we can pass on to others. That's that leaving a trail behind us part. So after being asked this several times, I took a moment out to really stop and think about it. And as I did, my mind and my eyes were open to an area full of mentors, an arena kind of. So I could imagine me standing almost like in the Colosseum, the Roman Colosseum, and a gladiator walking out. And out there is a whole arena full of people, and they're mentors. And they're all looking down upon this race of life that I'm running. The truth began to become clearer. I then thought of those I interact with through motivational speaking, through Grit for Life, and each of you are in your own arena. And not only are you in your own arena, but I realized that I was one of those mentors standing in your arena, and I'm cheering you on, and I'm encouraging you. This, as personal reflection many times does, opened my mind and soul to an important lesson that I want to share with you in this podcast today, and I hope that it will take root inside of you. I hope it'll grow and begin to really form the person you are. I want to talk about trailblazers and why we admire them, or should we even admire them? I looked up the definition. I was getting ready for this podcast. I looked up the definition of trailblazer, and the definition is one who makes new tracks through wild country. Ooh, sounds exciting. But there are books and articles that are written about individuals who are known as trailblazers. You can go and pick up in the self-help or the biography section of any local bookstore, download it on your Kindle or Amazon, whatever it is. You can find books over and over and over of people who are considered trailblazers and the books about them and how they did it. There are those who seem to beat the odds in a niche or market that appears to come out of nowhere. And many times we admire these people for that. I'm not saying that we shouldn't. For the truth is that they did get where they are due to a new, fresh way of looking at things. And that is important. I think it's important to each of us. Is to again, going back to the reflective piece, taking a moment out to stop, reflect, and look at things new. But that's what a trailblazer does. But my question to you as we look at the path before us is this. What really is a trailblazer? I mean, I gave you the definition, but what really is a trailblazer? Did they really track through a new path in wild country? The answer, of course, is usually that they did. But what got them there is more important. Because that's the thing that's going to drive you forward if you can grab a hold of this truth. Behind every CEO, new startup company, success story comes the mentorship. No matter how great or small that mentorship is, this has given trailblazers the principles and tools to become exactly that, a trailblazer. You see, it isn't like they woke up one morning and decided with no path before them to forge a path that had not been already marked. Each of those individuals do not have some super power that you yourself are unable to obtain. No, in fact, each individual who you may look up to, each person who there's a biography about, each CEO of a large company or the founder of some great organization, they're not superpower. They're not superhuman. And everything they have, that's the greatest thing about it is you have. You have the same tools and access to the tools as they do. So, what's the difference? Well, they watched closely the path in front of them. They kept an eye on those who they believe had skill sets and success stories that they could capitalize on. They also didn't make excuses. They put in hard work. And most importantly, they valued good, strong, sound mentorship. Now, if you're listening to this podcast for a reason. There's something that is stirring inside of you that knows you can achieve greater things. You could reach up and pluck the fruit of your dream tree in essence. And you want to know how to plant the seeds from that fruit to grow more dream trees. You want an orchard of dreams to grow. But what you can't look past and ignore is that someone planted that original dream tree. Or maybe just planted a seed in you. Someone, even if you don't realize it, gave you the proper instructions to nurture that tree and grow it. Now, it may be direct or indirect. We can be mentored directly. We can be mentored indirectly by watching the people around us, by watching strong leadership, by watching successes, by watching failures. It's no secret that I talk all the time about the good and bad of leadership that I had throughout my life, and most of it being within the military. I still have my individual who, if they asked me right now, today, to follow them in the darkest corners of the world, I would. That individual was a former first sergeant of mine. Now I watched as this man, who had accomplished so much in life, pour into us as his soldiers the truths that had been instilled in him. Now he did that, but I will tell you, he didn't even just stop with his own company. No. He went to other companies in the battalion that we were a part of. And he did the same thing. You see, because he was growing not just a dream tree. He wanted to grow an orchard of dream trees. So what is something that you can learn from him? What is something that I learned from him? I'm the man, husband, leader, and motivator I am today because I soaked up and I soaked in everything that he laid in front of me on my path. Many times he may not even have the opportunity to realize that. I was one of several hundred soldiers. But I will tell you, I am still friends with this individual today. And I've had the opportunity to thank him for all that he did. And the key thing is that he's very humble. A good mentor, a good person to blaze the trail in front of you will always be humble. I have experienced things that I never would have ever imagined due to the steady focus on leaders and other trailblazers who instilled in me principles of success and heart for people. I think those two are very valuable. I want to say that again. Principles of success and a heart for people. And then to see them reach levels they never thought possible, to be able to mentor yourself and to mentor other people, man, that's awesome. That's so powerful. And it's almost like a drug. You get high on it and you can't get enough. You want to move forward more. You want to be successful more, and you want to encourage more people to do the same, because when you surround yourself with success, when you surround yourself with hungry people, you yourself will continue to move forward. You want to be a success? You want to plant an orchard of dreams? Then do this. Write this down right now. Pause this. Go get a piece of paper. Write it down. Don't waste your time around negative and senseless relationships that leech from your energy and time. I'll just say that again. Don't waste your time around negative and senseless relationships that leech from your energy and time. But instead, relationships and situations that value you, your dreams, and your time. I want you to value yourself. I want you to value your dreams. You value your time. And how do you do that? By investing all of them into people worth it. Individuals and dream makers who will not tell you how to do it, but build tools for you to do it. Now let me explain what I mean by that. I see so many people, they sit around and they go out on the weekends and they party, or they go home and they grab a drink and they sit down and they veg, or they're around negative people at work, and then they go out other places and they're around negative family members on the weekends, and they want big things for their lives. And maybe you can relate to this, but you are surrounding yourself with people who they're just... I listened personally to a podcast this week. Actually, it may have been a YouTube video. And it talked about getting off the pity potty. And how many people do you surround yourself with every day that are sitting on pity potties? It's like a whole bunch of people sitting on pity potties, staring at each other, talking about how awful things are and how they wish it would get better, but they don't do anything, and they continue to feed into the negativity of each other. And I will tell you, if you do this, if you allow people like this into your life, your path, you will get lost. There are those who have gone before you. They are people who see the value in you, in what you want to do, and who you are as a unique individual. Those are the people that you want to surround yourself with. I see too many who spin their tires in the muck of negative or time-wasting socialization. They'll spend hours on Facebook, but they won't listen to a podcast, or they'll have an excuse why they don't have time to listen to a podcast. They'll spend hours on Instagram or playing video games or binge watching on Netflix, but they won't pick up a book that will motivate them and send them forward in reading. And then they complain about it, and they complain about never seeing the fruit of their labor. But I promise you, if you are working hard, you're digging hard, you're planning hard, but have not learned from those who are humble and willing to help you build the proper tools, then in essence, I kind of say it's like you're trying to bake a cake by using just a juicer. It's not going to work. It's not. You have to be paying attention to the path before you and those who've gone before you. You will become frustrated if you don't. You'll become angry, and maybe you feel hopeless. Maybe you're saying, hey, Nate, I feel that way now. This is ringing true to my heart, then you must, with no excuse, look forward on your path, and I want you to learn, soak in, and accept mentorship of strong leaders. Now, don't get confused, because those who've gone before you may not look like what you think they may look like. And what I mean by that is, don't just pay attention to the Steve Jobs or those individuals who have Bill Gates, people who are big known names. Maybe it's a CEO of your company. And when we think of success, sometimes we think of that suit and that the cars and the lavish lifestyle and that's success. But the thing about it is, where we fail to understand many times when it comes to looking at the path before us, is that those who have gone before us and that we need to surround ourselves with may not look like we expect. It will not always be the CEO of a company that you work for, but it very well could be the janitor that empties your trash or cleans the restroom. They may be younger than you, maybe a lot older than you. Never dismiss the chance to learn from anyone and everyone that you come in contact with. You want to know how I come up with the principles that run Grit for Life? You want to know why I can stay motivated? Because I've learned that every single person I run into, whether it's just an eye glance, whether it be standing beside them in transit, whether it be standing in line, whether it just be a brief hi, how are you? Every single person I run into, no matter their status in life, there might be the homeless person standing on the corner, or it might be the CEO in the main office. Each and every single one of them have something that I can learn from them. Never dismiss the chance to learn from anyone and everyone that you come in contact with. I mean, going back to the janitor idea, would you want to clean out a clogged toilet? Probably most people would say no, but someone has to. So you can learn from that person doing the dirty work. You can learn that sometimes doing the dirty and hard work that no one else wants to do pays off. Doing the job others don't want to do still beats not having a job. There's a lesson you can learn. I have watched as janitorial staff get overlooked over and over, and yet they come into where they're working with a smile on their face, doing a job that nobody wants to do, and rarely anyone will thank them for. When was the last time that you thanked janitorial staff for cleaning a toilet? I actually try to do that. Anytime last year I was at an amusement park and I walked in and the bathrooms were gross, but there was someone in there cleaning them. After I got done using the restroom, washed my hands, made sure I did that, I walked up and I put out my hand and I shook the individual who was cleaning the bathroom. I shook their hand and I said, thank you. Because they're doing a job that I don't want to do, but I can guarantee you that if they didn't do their job, it would affect my park experience. Would you notice if they weren't there? I bet you'd notice if your trash can was overflowing, as well as your toilet, so you would notice. So a lesson you can learn from that is to make yourself valuable doing what others won't do, and in doing so, you make yourself priceless. And that's just a lesson learned from a janitor. A lesson you can learn from that is to make yourself valuable doing what others won't do. And in doing so, you make yourself priceless. I could talk for days about the different principles that you could learn from this illustration. But the point I want you to walk away with is this. The CEO is at the top. They may have built the company. But if the toilets are overflowing because the janitor is not around, then the work environment is not worth working in. So what do I mean by that? From the bottom to the top, people are creating a path that you will walk every single day. And you can learn from each person you run into elements to make yourself better when you reflect and meditate on those things and learn principles that will make you a success. You learn from those on the trail. And then that brings us to the concept of leaving a trail behind. What do I mean by that? We talk about looking at the trail in front of you. Look at those who went before you. How do we leave a trail behind? Well, I want you to become the mentor you had or wish you had. Following the path before you and those who've gone before you is where many stop. They start seeing success, they taste success, they experience success, and then they run with it. You may think, well, what's wrong with that? Well, what is wrong is if you're pulling money from a stock, but not investing it back into something else, then that money eventually will run out. And the same comes with your life and your success. We all live each day. We grow older, and if we're not taking the time to invest in others, then soon our momentum will wane. And when it does, we've got nothing more to hold on to. As a military leader, I always placed my troops first. I invested in their lives, I invested in their families and their careers as much as I did mine. And I did this for a few reasons. One, if I'm training someone and investing in someone, all I know then, if I'm investing in someone all the things that I know, then I either keep learning and growing myself, or I take the chance of being passed up by those who followed me. I know that if I continue to feed into someone else, I have to learn. Perfect example, Grit for Life. If I motivate you, I have to stay motivated myself. Doesn't mean I don't have bad days. This last year, 2018, was one of the worst years my family has gone through. But I constantly reminded myself, my kids reminded me, my wife reminded me, what would you tell Grit Nation? What would you tell your podcast, Grit for Life? And I had to stay new and fresh. In order to continually motivate people, I have to learn new things. So if I'm training you and I'm investing in you, then I also am learning and I am getting refreshed. By investing in training others, I'm building my future life team. That's important. None of us are going to be successful on our own. So you got to build a team. Well, if you're taking time to invest in others like people have invested in you, then you're building your future team. I know that someone who takes what I invest in them, the principles that I show them, then I know that they will be people I can trust in the future to help me build even more success and dreams. Sure, they may go off on a totally different path. You and I may not be on the same path, but I know the core of who you are if you listen and hold to these principles. I know who you are at the core and what you stand for. And I promise you, I've seen it over and over many times, your path will tie back into mine. And if it does, then I'm stronger for it. We're both a success. Now, let me give you an example about this. When I was a sergeant in the military, I had a member who I began to invest in. They were struggling with many things, and even at one time thought about getting out of and throwing in the towel. So I didn't want the military to lose this individual, so I began to spend a lot of quality time investing in them. About a year later, I actually got out of the military, and they were still in. But since that time, because I invested in that person, I have been able to reach out to this military member who, after I left, they became very well connected. So recently I had a chance to invest in somebody else, but I needed some resources and connections for that second person. Now, because I had blazed a path ahead for the military member, they followed that path, and I was able to reach out to them, and they were able to give me resources for the second person that I didn't have. And I probably would not have had if I had not taken time out to invest and leave a trail behind me. See, all the trails tie in together. What I want you to know and I want you to understand is become fluid. Always learning forward, but teaching backwards. Always learning forward, teaching backwards. More importantly and most importantly, be humble. Be humble. Never forget that you are always one connection from everything falling apart. If you accept investment from those ahead, and then you turn around and invest in those behind, you, my friend, you will become rich. And I'm not necessarily saying financially, but I'm talking about your mind, body, and soul. Right now, I have a network of connections that literally go all around the world. But in that, I am also a connection for many other individuals. As I close this podcast out, I want to I want to recap and touch on what I've talked about over the last almost 20 minutes. You have everything within you that you need to be a success, but you must act upon it. You must stop wasting time with senseless time wasters and people. Invest your time in those who've walked the path in front of you because they've invested in you. And as you do this, you will begin, I promise you, to see a change. You will find yourself with so much collateral and revenue that you can build with. And then, as you build with it, you're going to become overwhelmed with it, and you are going to have it to give back. Give back to those who are following you. Because if you do this, you will be a success. Mind, body, and soul. I believe in you. That's why I do Grit for Life. So go out. I challenge you. Take time out. Reflect. Figure out who your mentors need to be. Let them blaze the trail in front of you and follow and soak up everything they give you. But then turn around and invest that back into those who follow you.